the way they have planned it?
Well, normally after Ramadan, there will be like usually here Friday and Saturday is the holiday. So all people will be gathered. It will be possible for them to gather only on Fridays. So all the festivals like Vishu, Bihu, whichever the Indian festivals, we celebrate it on Fridays.
Okay, so that is a backlog you'd be clearing, festive backlog, huh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Throughout the year, you can see Onam and all. So like a large Malayali community is living in Kuwait. So Onam festivals will continue for 2 to 3 months here.
Okay.
So similarly, Vishu also.
Yeah, Vijay, I think our system is fixed now. Firoz, is it fine now? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Give me a moment. So, hello everyone. Welcome back for today's class. Actually, we have today with us Dr. Vijay Kumar Soni, and he is going to deliver his lecture on writings in and on diaspora. Dr. Vijay is a journalist working with Open Magazine as an associate editor web. Prior to this, he was worked with various other media organizations, including India Today, the Times of India, Hindustan Times, and Thomson International. His research interest areas are media and diaspora studies and political communication. A UGC NET researcher, he has several peer-reviewed articles published in national and international journals and postgraduate in English literature, gold medalist, and journalism and mass communication. He has been invited to deliver lecture at Premium Media Institute, including Indian Institute of Mass Communication. He is one of the active member of GRFDT. With this brief introduction, now I like to introduce Dr. Vijay. Sir, now the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Firoz, for such a generous introduction. Thank you very much. So let's go ahead with a very, very interesting subject on diaspora and migration. And diaspora literature is so rich, I was just wondering whether I can cover it up hurriedly in one class, because it's so expansive and it covers centuries of literature product that has taken place during migration process. In fact, even before the concept of diaspora came into existence, or when people started talking about diaspora migration, the diaspora literature was already there. It was already there, and it was classified eventually later on in a different class of literature. So what we find that the conceptual idea of literature was much before even the concept came into existence. People started talking about diaspora. This was one very important aspect. And secondly, whenever we talk about diaspora literature, make it sure that L is already in literature, L is always capital. We cannot put it as small, like it's not any other literature, which means any type of written material or records. Literature could be computer literature, it could be any kind of a literature, or manual, it could be also a literature. But when we talk about diaspora literature, we always write with capital L. It is just similar to gender literature or colonial literature. So that you have to keep in mind, because it is a different category of literature. It's like when you talk about a language literature, so it is a thematic and social subject literature, which is apart from any general kind of written material. So these were the two important points, and let me diaspora literature, when you talk about how it came into existence, is largely because people who migrated and spread out into different parts of the world, they started writing their experiences. And sometimes their migration journey had been, I would say, has been enjoyable, but at times it has been quite strenuous also for them, because it was a tale of struggle, pain, joy, deprivation, prosperity, and achievement also. So this is how diaspora literature came into existence, because they started narrating their feelings, their experiences, their lived-in experiences wherever they went around. And secondly, because they come from a place, from their homeland, so everything that came across during their journey was always compared with the homeland. So you'll always find, and
Vijay, this slide is not moving.
okay, no, sir, I am just putting on the first slide. I'm not reading out, and I'm just trying to explain and then move on to the next one.
Right.
So is this clear where I talk about diaspora literature?
I didn't listen, but it is clear, I think. But
Okay,
I thought slide, some message came.
Okay, sir. Now it is moving.
Just do.
Is it moving?
No. You should do in the screen share mode. Otherwise, give it to the Firoz. Give it to Firoz.
Just a sec, sir. Is it moving now?
No.
Okay. So I'll share with Firoz.
Yes. Now moving.
Is it moving now?
Hmm.
Okay, sir. And now I understand it was a slide mode. So let me, yeah. So diaspora literature is a safety wall that we discussed about, and it is also a space of creative expression of individual individual stories about their struggle, deprivation, and prosperity. The theme mostly relates to cultural identity, ethnicity, nostalgia, racism, discrimination, displacement, dislocation, and cultural values. And because there is a quite contrast between what a diaspora or a migrant experiences in his or her homeland, as well as in a different country, which is altogether an alien to him. So they always try to contrast between these two aspects. And this is especially true for the first generation of diaspora literature writers. And what is first generation and second generation of diaspora literature will come across, and we'll also see who are the people who fit into these two different categories. And the objective of identity formation is yet another theme which find expression in most of these writings. And when we talk about migration and diaspora, identity is always debatable. It is always discussed and negotiated, as we have seen. So similar kind of expression you will find in the literature also. And diaspora literature has been so rich that it also received global recognition. And you must be knowing about Jhumpa Lahiri's winning the Pulitzer Prize for her work Interpreter of Melodies. It's quite famous, that you would be aware of. And these kind of works are also cultural production. Cultural production because they deal with a particular culture, with a particular group of people, and that too at both the places, both in the homeland as well as in the host countries. That's why we say it is a cultural production. Cultural production would means any kind of fine arts. It could be dress, it could be food, it could be say festivals. So it is also a kind of a cultural production. And another topic which find expression is about cross-cultural experiences and multiculturalism, which a diaspora come across during his or her journey, and which is written about. And most importantly, even before the academic study on diaspora and migration came, you must be aware, and we will see some of these instances, that diaspora literature was already much before this one. Before this particular stream of study appeared on diaspora, the topic was already there in a very rich cultural literature form. because it also deals with the artifacts and national tradition in both the countries of the diaspora, which again find expression in diaspora literature. Of course, the main topic always relates with the process of journey, the migration, and leading to formation of refugee groups, asylum seekers, and colonial lives. Colonial lives is a very rich group of literature which intersects with diaspora literature. You will see that a lot of diaspora literature came during the colonial period, because people, that was the time period when people started migrating from one place to another, especially during the First World War, Second World War. So this process was further got impetus. And before that, we realized about the slave trade which was happening, transcontinental slave trade. Again, the experiences of those colonial people who went out exploring different countries in search of labor, in search of raw material. It also forms the part of diaspora literature, as well as the experiences of people who are being enslaved. So all these form a group of literature which comes under diaspora literature. And of course, as the experiences we are talking about, it also deals with the discrimination, racial prejudices, and multicultural ethos especially in the host countries. So briefly, I'm just talking about the broad outline of diaspora literature. Okay, what are the themes they deal with, and how the treatment is given, how the aesthetic angle is added to those topics. This I've already explained to you about being a cultural production like cinema, music. Diaspora literature is a distinct group of cultural production. It is quite subjective in nature, obviously, because it is not an academic objective analysis and observation of events. Because we are talking about diaspora literature, which generally deals with fiction. A large podium of consisting of diaspora literature is related with the fictional part, and not an objective academic analytical part. One of the major themes that we come across is loss of homeland. Most of the novels, most of the fiction work, poetry, drama, or any of this genre of literature that we talk about, that always deals with some kind of a particular angst or anxiety which is there. So loss of homeland is a major thematic area which people give expression in their literature. And so much so that even 21st century writer like Salman Rushdie has a major observation on loss of homeland. We'll talk about it and see what he has to say about the homeland. And of course, related with that is nostalgia, alienation, and identity formation, and the feeling of otherness. Feeling of otherness is a process of being segregated from the mainstream host countries' populace, the people. So that's how they are made to feel as somebody belonging to different class of people, different race, different color. And this is a very crucial area. But again, when we talk about two generations of people, first generation, those who migrated at the beginning, they were the one who felt these angst more acutely than the second generation who were acculturalized in a particular country. And some of the countries from where this literature comes is, of course, where the Indian diaspora was there, like Fiji, Trinidad, Tobago, South Africa, Malaysia, Suriname, Guyana, Reunion Island. V.S. Naipaul, you must have heard about. He came from Trinidad, Tobago, and he received Nobel Prize for his work. And we see what are the subjects that he deals with. A House for Mr. Vishwas is a very prominent work of V.S. Naipaul, where he talks about the eternal quest for homeland, which is again a very interesting aspect of diaspora literature. And apart from these countries, US, UK, Canada, Australia, also we have come with the modern diaspora writers. And this happened mostly from the second generation migrants. We talk about Rohinton Mistry, we talk about Jhampa Lahiri. They are second generation diaspora writers, and how their treatment of subject, fiction, character is quite different from the first generation. Another aspect that we are talking about while giving an outline of diaspora literature is its being non-cohesive, inorganic human narrative. Non-cohesive, it means it jumps from one experience to another. Inorganic also means like it is not threaded from beginning to, like it has a beginning, it has a middle, it has a conclusion. So because their experiences are inorganic, so their characters are also inorganic expression of their creativity. There are apart from first and second generation of diaspora literature writers, we also come across two broad categories, which we call colonial diaspora literature and post-colonial diaspora literature. During the colonial period diaspora, we have got some of the prominent writers like Neeraj C. Chaudhary, Raja Rao, and Mr. Selvan is there, G.V. Desai. But incidentally, some of these writers overlived the colonial phase. And so they intersect between both the colonial and post-colonial period. And their work reflects the transition as well as the changes which was taking place geopolitically. So during the post-colonial periods, the prominent writers that we talk about is G.V. Desani, Kamala Markande, V.S. Naipaul, Salman Rushdie, Anita Desai, Chitra Banerjee Devakarni, Meena Alexander, Rohinton Mistry, Bharti Mukherjee. There is another group of people, we talk about Shashi Tharoor, Amitav Ghosh, Vikram Seth, Amit Chaudhary, Jhampa Lahiri, and Hari Kunjuru. Now, incidentally, some of these writers, especially when we talk about Shashi Tharoor, and we talk about Amitav Ghosh or Vikram Seth, can they be called, basically they are Indian writers in English, but they can they be called a diaspora literature writers also, or a diaspora writers? Yes, largely because they have lived some part of their life overseas, and they have experienced they have experienced their the living conditions there, and they have narrated those things in their works. So they can very well be called a diaspora literature, because it is not necessary that only a diasporic person can write diaspora literature. Even a person who has traveled widely and has gone through different experiences over a journey can also write work, can write novel, can write poetry or theatrical works which falls under the diaspora literature. Similar case we can find with Arvind Adiga, The White Tiger. The work is very famous, you must have read somewhere. Atish Tashir, Pankaj Mishra, Abraham Burgess. These are some of the prominent names who are of Indian origin, and either they have migrated as a first generation, or a large number of them are second generation writers. It means that they were born and brought up overseas. So these are the broad categories that we explain about while talking about diaspora literature. Again, apart from the fact that they were born overseas and they were brought up there, the difference in their narrative of the character or the kind of fiction they have written is also reflected in their literature. So the categorization differentiate them based on their different treatment and narratives, something that I spoke earlier. And obviously, because they are second generation people, immigrants, so their perception about the receiving country, the host country, is very, very different from the first generation, that is from their parents. So there's a wide contrast in the way their character mature, the way they behave, and the way they interact with their homeland countries as well as their host country citizens. And how it is reflected in some of this literature, probably in subsequent slides we'll see. Yes, of course. Now, this is a very important point when we talk about second generation diaspora, that they were hemmed between two cultures. In a sense, their parents are from, for example, they are from India or Pakistan or Indian subcontinent, and this is one culture, and the other culture is of the host country. For example, they have gone to US or maybe Canada, Australia. So they are basically sandwiched between these two cultures. And there's always a kind of struggle for them, which one to adopt. While at home, there is a parental pressure, there is a parental or, say, upbringing issues. And once they go out of home, they realize, they are altogether in a different kind of a culture, which is in quite contrast to what is being taught and brought up at home. So they are the group of people who are hemmed between these two cultures. I have had personal experience of interacting with some of those people, especially some of those Indian Foreign Services people and their sons and daughters. And they always, for example, all their life, some of them are born abroad, but a good number of them were those who were born in India, but went with their parents overseas. So a large part of their life was spent outside India. And once their parents retire and they come back to India, they are not able to adjust to Indian realities because they find it's altogether a different kind of a group of people. The behavior, the attitude, and the culture is different. So all these things find expression in this group of people. Because of this rootlessness, they always suffer through what we have called identity crisis. Now, identity crisis is being seen in a very altogether a different kind of a context nowadays. Identity is not only negotiated, but identity is undermined at times because of geopolitical forces. Some of these things I can talk about when you say about war and threat and terrorism. So you can see this thing, how identity is being undermined. And of course, because most of these things you can find expression in their work, in their characters, in their poetry. The other topic which find is talks about sense of belonging. Now, for the first generation, a large part of their work depends on the memory and nostalgia. You remember something that Salman Rushdie said about it. Although these people migrate to another countries, which is their host country, but in real sense, their home country lies only in the memory. So this is another very important fact, how memory and nostalgia forms a major part of first generation diaspora writers. Whereas for the second generation writers, because they have never been to their homeland, and whenever they come to India or whenever they come to their place of belonging of their parents, they draw rich, inexhaustible raw material. Raw material in a sense, their observation. Once they come to India, they have never been in India earlier, but once they come, so a large part of the raw material is drawn from the tapestry of Indian culture. This is true for the second generation writers. the separation from the homeland was so overwhelming that they could not experience the newfound experience of the host country. Now, what we see, this is true for the first generation of diaspora writers. They migrated to Australia, for example. They were overwhelmed, or they were so much possessive, and I would say obsessive about their homeland, that they missed those new things which in their host country. So the sense of nostalgia had been very, very strong on the first generation of writers. Whereas for the second generation, you see, they were the people who could very acutely observe things in their host country, but likewise, once they come to India or to their to the country of belonging of their parents, now their sense of observation is very, very different. It's quite different from something that they have observed in the country where they were brought up. So, and that forms the raw material of their work. So each of these writers, whether we talk about the first generation or second generation, they always reimagine realities in their homeland, as well as the place where they have lived. Now this very interesting aspect that comes to our observation is diaspora literature was the pioneer of English writing, Indian writing in English. Much before the first novel came into existence, there was already a rich podium of literature which was written by Indians who had gone abroad. Now I'll come to some of these individual writers. I'm sorry, some of the slides have, because it was prepared hurriedly, there could be typos, so please do not overlook those things. Like in the first sentence, I could now see, as I spoke about Neeraj C. Chaudhary, because he died in 1999, and he had lived a large part of his life and cultural production, literary production during the colonial period. So he falls into these two categories, into the old colonial period as well as post-colonial diaspora writers. He went to England and lived considerable part there, and he died there also. And his house is very famous, which was recently converted into a museum, a red brick house. I'm just forgetting the name of that was given to it. He is famous for his two very rich work, is the Autobiography of an Unknown Indian and A Passage to India. They are a very prominent work. Autobiography of an Unknown Indian is, people say this is autobiographical work of Neeraj C. Chaudhary. Could be largely because he has explained his own experiences there and the kind of problem that he faced in a developed country. And other work, A Passage to India, is if you see, during the colonial period writers, they mostly, including Raja Rao, they deal with the poverty of India. They deal with the deprivation, and largely because they had gone, they had faced and observed these social realities while living in India. They have expressed those things in their work, and the same prism is through which other outsiders have seen India through. In a sense, they could imagine the poverty, deprivation, and the hard realities of India through these writers. So in a way, there has been a debate in literary circle, are they responsible for portraying an image of India which is poverty-ridden, deprived, and social injustices. So again, this is quite a debatable issue, because a writer has a freedom to write and express the way he or she look at the reality. So it might not agree with the outside reality, with outside expectations, but this is how the person has seen. So this is something that we talk about creative expression. So we have to give this liberty to these writers. Oh, this is how they felt, they saw, they expressed, and they wrote about. Another writer of those period include Raja Rao. He went and lived in France for a long period of time. Unlike Neeraj C. Chaudhary, who deals with social realities, Raja Rao is more spiritual in treatment to his character. He gives a different kind of he gives a tangent which is quite different from other writers. His very famous work is The Serpent and the Roe. I'm sure some of you must be aware with this Indian philosophy, how people in dark or maybe in ignorance can imagine a rope to be a serpent. So this is how he has dealt some of his character with. That something that they perceive is not the truth. Most of his writings are metaphysical in nature, and he doesn't say things very straightforward, but he always puts allegory, he puts simile, and that's how he tries to explain a phenomena or a social reality or a spiritual reality, I would say, because most of his works deals with this one. One of his famous work is Kantapura, where a protagonist whose name is Murthy, he fights against social injustice and eventually becomes a Gandhian. So his journey is more towards a spiritual path, towards his conviction, or towards the road that he wants to take. So, as I said earlier, that Neeraj C. Chaudhary and Raja Rao, because most of their treatment or the work of their fiction deals with India, so the debate is whether they can be called a diaspora writers. So now there is a contrast. Although unlike second generation writers, when we talk about Jhumpa Lahiri or we talk about the Rohinton Mistry, they were the one who lived in India for lesser period of time, whereas these two writers, they went abroad and wrote more about India than other second generation writers. So the debate is whether they can be considered as a diaspora writer or not, but largely they are considered a diaspora writers because of their subsequent experiences which they had in their country, say the country where they went. So they were the precursor of diaspora writers in a true sense, but not largely because of the scant treatment they have given to diasporic life. They wrote in English language, and the readers of their work were mostly English-speaking overseas people. Now, this is a very interesting point now. For whom does the diaspora writer writes for? Where is its audience lie? Whether it is in overseas or whether it is in India, because they write about India and sell those work overseas. So this is a very interesting aspect that has come to light and that has been being debated now. Another writer is G.V. Desani. He was a British Indian novelist. I have put the images of all these people, all these writers, so that at least you capture, you could see, and next time when you see, you will be aware who they are. G.V. Desani was again a British Indian novelist, and most of his writing deals with the multicultural aspect of diaspora. He was born in Kenya and lived in India, England, and the US. He has a very famous book called All About H. Hatter, for which he is well known. Is about the experience and of the quest for knowledge and wisdom that a man looks for. So more or less, again, he can be compared with Raja Rao because of the treatment of the subject they have. Kamala Markandeya is a diaspora writer, but at the same time, she has done a very good work on gender aspect. So she's cited as one of the examples of diaspora gender writers, because most of the subject that she deals with is about the treatment and the kind of the kind of injustice which is done maybe within the family, within the society, or even overseas to women in the larger scheme of things. Her famous book, novel is Nectar in a Sea, which is a very, very famous book. I think you must have anybody who is interested can have a look. Is a story of Rukmani and Nathan in their lives, which is full of hardship once they plan to go overseas. It should be noted that the subject of poverty and destitution forms the main subject of most of the Anglo-Indian writers, as I explained to you earlier. She has got another work which is called The Nowhere Man, which helped her become a true diaspora writer. So The Nowhere Man, as the title suggests, it doesn't belong to any place, any particular localized territory or to a country. The topic, the novel deals with the first and second Indian immigrants to London who is exposed to racism and differential treatment. The protagonist of the work, Srinivasan, is not able to cope up with the cultural trauma and becomes depressive. Now, this is one of the major theme that we have seen, with which these diaspora writers deal with. His son, Lakshman's response to racism, on the other hand, is quite different from his father's. Now, there is a differential generational treatment of both these writers, as can be seen among the first and second generation diaspora writers. This is incidentally, this reflects very well in their characters also. So this was largely a broad outline of work that some of these writers deal with. V.S. Naipaul, I'm very sure you must be reading a lot about him. Naipaul is considered to be one of the most prominent post-colonial Indian diaspora writers because he won Nobel Prize, but it was not because of his being a diaspora writer, but the kind of a treatment that he has given to different aspects. His observations are quite different from other diaspora writers, and probably I have enjoyed some of his work. If you have seen, if you have ever read his work on an area of darkness on India, he has got some very good observation. I'll come to that point subsequently, and you would be knowing that he's a second generation immigrant Trinidad and Tobago, where he was born and brought up. His grandparents had come to Trinidad as indentured laborers, in 1880s. And he is considered to be one of the most widely traveled also, which is reflected in some of his work. His very important work dealing with the diaspora journey is Enigma of Arrival. Enigma of Arrival deals with the quest and of a person trying to move from his roots to outside world. So Enigma of Arrival is largely deals with the diaspora experiences. It has been said that most diaspora writers and their characters are not characterized by actual dislocation. Now, this is a very interesting point. They are not actual dislocation, but by the inherited memory of dislocation. See how true it is with the Naipaul. Naipaul was not the first generation of immigrant. His grandparents had gone to Trinidad and Tobago, but the kind of household tales, the stories that you narrate from your children from one generation to second generation, this is how get imprinted in their mind, and some of these things find expression in their work. So it is something that we call inherited memory of dislocation. They have not personally gone through dislocation. Although Naipaul traveled widely, but he did not face the problem which their grandparents had faced, but the memory still continued, and which finds expression in his work. Something that we call about psychological wound, which continues festering from one generation to another. It is quite similar to the victim of partition, the Indian subcontinent partition in India and Pakistan took place. So you'll find a lot of victims, a lot of people who suffered those trauma. And even those first generation is no more, it continues in the second generation. They keep explaining the same, narrating the same story and the same pain which have gone through. A House for Mr. Vishwas is a very prominent work of A.S. Naipaul, which I have read. And there is another book, Domestic Measure. They are two very important books which deals with the homeland, which deals with a perpetual quest or perpetual looking for a homeland in a diasporic journey. Their characters are in perennial search for home, which they could call their own. Now, this is something that they have been traveling from one place to another. Even in case of Naipaul, he has traveled through different continents and lived there. But the search is the internal search is for a homeland. But incidentally, they could not find a place which they could call their own, because again, this is only a concept. This is only a concept which Salman Rushdie has explained in some of his work. Yeah, this is the work I was talking about. An area of darkness. See, an area of darkness is basically deals with is a traveler, which he talks about his experiences doing when he came to India and traveled through length and breadth of the country. And he even went to, he very richly explains Vijayanagar Empire. He went to South Deccan area, and he went to Vijayanagar Empire and he saw the ruins and all. So it was a very enlightening explanation, and I would say a differential treatment that has given from other writers which who have written about Indian culture. I'll just take a small break while talking about. Can you tell me one of the diaspora writers who has written about Vijayanagar Empire recently? Any one of you? Can you hear me? Just say yes or no. Then I could at least.
Yes, you are audible.
Vijaya and Abha, other members. Who has written about Vijayanagar Empire, and he happens to be a diaspora writer. Okay, let me give you a hint. His name appears in the next slide. Yes, Salman Rushdie. Salman Rushdie wrote a book. It's called The Victory City. Victory City is about Vijayanagar Empire and the way it was founded by a woman, by a lady. So she was the one who had formed the Vijayanagar Empire, which was one of the third largest city in the world during 1500 AD. CE, that is 1500 CE. It was one of the third largest city in the world, and it was known for its affluence, for its wealth, and for its art and culture. A lot of architecture you must have seen, a lot of sculpture you must have seen that belongs to that period. So Victory City is the work which Salman Rushdie wrote, and this happened after he was attacked by say a youth in US where he was injured. And this came, and this was widely acclaimed and appreciated. So yeah, coming back to Naipaul, So an area of darkness, you must remember this one. The other work is India, a Wounded Civilization. And third book is India, a Million Mutinies Now. These three books deals with India. An area of darkness, India, a Wounded Civilization, and India, a Million Mutinies Now. These are the observations. Although he's a diaspora writer, but because his parents belong to India, he came to India, observed through the length and breadth of the country. He traveled widely and wrote his observation on India. According to him, India was a decaying culture, and he has given quite contrasting observation as well as reasoning for that, to which many people objected, and they might not agree. But I would say, of course, these are the a very, very different perspective that he has given on India. As I said, for Nepal, there is no permanent home in the real world, because that lies only in the mind, in the psyche of the seeker. So there is no permanent home for a diaspora or for a migrant. In fact, the Swedish Academy, while awarding the Nobel Prize for Literature to him in 2001, said about him, a literally circumnavigator. Circumnavigator, the person who goes around the world from one place to another. A literally circumnavigator, only ever really at home in himself. Only ever really at home in himself. It means the home lies in the person himself. In his inimitable voice. Now, a literary circumnavigator only ever really at home in himself, in his inimitable voice. It means the concept of home lies not outside the world, not in India or US, Canada, but it is in yourself. So this is what this is the observation of some of the writers, including Nepal. Now we'll move on to Salman Rushdie. You must have read a lot about him, and especially because he's a diaspora writer who lived in Mumbai and then went to UK and US. His observations are quite controversial, as well as offering a very different kind of a perspective. He is best known for his work called Midnight Children, the Satanic Verses, and the Satanic Verses. Rushdie deals with the specificity of plot from magic realism. Now, this is the concept that you have to always remember when knowing about Salman Rushdie. The term magic realism comes with him. And this is how the subsequent literature, whether it was a mainstream literature or whether it was a diaspora literature, it gained the prominence. And magic realism is a treatment which he gives to social realities in a magical form. It would like, no, it doesn't exist, but it very much exists. This is what we call about magic realism. His two novels, which is again very controversial, has been Shame and the Satanic Verses, which looks at the issue of migration and translocation of characters, of people. He narrates the physical dislocation of his character Gabriel Farishta and Saladin Chamcha through symbolic means. Now he uses very interesting names. If you go through some of his work, the characters are very differently named and quite interestingly, and there is always it has an allegorical reference. It means you can see them. You can find those expressions in mythologies. You can see in some of the classical work. So it is always allegorical in context. Likewise, in Shalimar the Crown, the character travels through different cultural zones in Kashmir and Los Angeles. It deals with the feeling of love and betrayal by focusing on disruption and migratory relationship. Rushdie is well known for his idea of imagined homeland. Now, this should be very interesting for you, being a scholar and being a student of diaspora and migration. So, in case you happen to get this one, please go through it. Another writer, I will just interrupt. Firoz, how much time do I have? Hello.
Sir, it's totally on you.
Okay, then let me. I think it's more than 1 hour or so. Let me finish some of those prominent writers, and I'll come back to discussion.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, Jhumpa Lahiri, again, you see, she has been in the US and you have heard her name. Very famous book that she wrote is about the namesake, the interpreter of melodies, the unaccustomed earth, the lowland, and whereabouts. These are the prominent works that she has dealt with. And there's a movie also made in the namesake with the same title. Interpreter of melodies is another important work. It throws light on the lives of first and second generation Indian migrants to the US. Now you'll always find this concept all through these writers, because they talk about their parents, they talk about the children, which are first generation and second generation. So this always figures into in some or the other work of their fictional or non-fictional work. The characters in Jhumpa's novels are in continuous search for belonging, identity, and fluidity of movement. Ashima of the namesake moves from Calcutta to Boston and experiences the dynamics of movement and alienation. A similar feeling is echoed in her character, in one of her characters in the book called Whereabouts, when she says, "I have never stayed still. I have always been moving. I have always been moving." Something that a character which we talk about, a migration. This is done. I think I missed some of those things. Probably I will just. Okay, I'm going up. Yeah. Now I have come to the next slide, which is on Rohinton Mistry. Rohinton Mistry, another diaspora writer. He was born in Mumbai and migrated to Canada. He wrote some of the very famous works, Such a Long Journey, which I have read. Incidentally, I read through A Fine Balance and Family Matters. Now, his first work, Such a Long Journey, deals with his stay in Mumbai, and that too during the period of emergency, the blackouts, the police atrocities, and the curbing of basic rationing. So he deals on these issues and talks not about in this particular work, he doesn't talk about diaspora life. He talks about his Indian experience. A Fine Balance and Family Matters, it has got diasporic element. The plot of most of his fictional writings are set in India and faithfully depicts the social and political events of the time. Political events, something that I spoke about, emergency. As most of the writers in exile, his writings, while being nostalgic, are realistic. They are nostalgic, but it depicts the picture quite realistically. Apart from Rohinton Mistry, Hari Kunjru is another very famous writer. He is a second generation immigrant to the UK, born in Kashmir, and lived a large part of his life in Britain. I think he still lives in Britain only. And his works include The Impressionist, Transmission, The Revolutions, God Without Men, White Tears, and Red Pill. Now, you see, the diasporic experience is reflected in the title of his book, where he talks about the impressionist, the kind of an impression that a person has to a place, to people, to countries. Transmission, again, is talking about moving from one place to another. He talks largely about the world of politics and mechanization. He offers a different perspective on religion, liberal democracy, and the changing society. And he has dealt in detail on right-wing shift in global politics and the rising cases of anti-immigrant feelings, especially during the Trump regime, during the Trump era. Kunju's earlier novel dealt deeply on the question of identity and belonging of the immigrants. His novel, Transmission, makes his protagonist traverse through different geography and time zones, which he narrates. Amit Chaudhary, again, is Indian. Is based in Calcutta. He's based in India, but he has lived a part of his life in overseas. So he can be called a diaspora writer. He experienced because he experienced it firsthand as what it means to be an outsider in a different country. In his novel Afternoon Raga, Chaudhary depicts an Indian student's experience in Oxford. In one of his essays, The Eternity of Return. The eternity of return. Can you see some kind of the quest for homeland, the feeling of going home? Chaudhary realizes the fact that Indians who come to visit their homeland, a lot of NRIs, a lot of Indians you see once in a year or twice in a year, they make a visit to their homeland to meet their relatives, to meet their parents, or just to spend their time to feel the culture and to teach the children about Indian culture. Basically, the very fact of visiting India by Indian overseas Indians or expatriates is basically a symbolic act of rehearsing a return. Now, you always have this feeling that one day I'll go to my hometown, I'll go to my home place. Somebody, for example, even people, Indians who are living, for example, a person from Bihar or West Bengal lives in a considerable part because of economic reasons. He has to work. He or she lives in Mumbai or maybe in Chennai. But, he goes back to his or her hometown in Calcutta or wherever he or she belongs to. So the very act of visiting those places is a rehearsing a return, as if his rehearsal that one day he will return to that place. He has talked about Bilet Firot. Bilet Firot is a foreign return or London return that we talk about. This was a thing which was quite evident among Indians during 1920s. You remember a lot of people used to go to London to do their barristery, to do practice law. So, and once they used to come back, they were disparagingly also, that you can say, they were called as Bilet Firot. It was a foreign return. Yeah. So this was largely about Amit Chaudhary. Amitav Ghosh is another writer. He lives in New York. His fiction revolves in and around Indian subcontinent in Southeast Asia and in around Indian Ocean. He is the author of the Circle of Region, The Shadow Line, Calcutta Chromosomes, The Glass Palace, The Hungry Tide, Sea of Poppies. Sea of Poppies is a very famous book. Yeah, these are the famous, especially The Shadow Line. You can have a look. I'll move to the Vikram Seth. Let me do it. I do not want you to hang on for too long. We'll just open the floor for discussion. Vikram Seth is quite a well-known diaspora writer who was there in the UK, and he is best known for his A Suitable Boy, The Golden Gate, and Equal Magic. These were some of his famous works. One of the distinctive features of Seth's work is plot and character setting from India to China to UK. Cultural hybridity and cross-cultural connections of his characters are another prominent theme. The Golden Gate, the subjects are the Americans, while in Equal Magic, their characters are in Europe. So you see, he has got a transcontinental character who moves from one place to another. Samuel Salmon, another prominent diasporic person. His parents were first-generation immigrant to Caribbean island. He moved to England and worked with BBC for some time. His famous novel include The Lonely Londoners. See, the feeling of loneliness, alienation is a common topic which has found expression in most of these writers. And most of his work deals with the period from 1950s to 1960s. Anita Desai, she is a very famous diaspora writer, and her novel, especially Fasting Feasting, trapasses the cultural boundaries between India and the US. It tells the story of Uma and Arun, who go through different sets of experiences in these two countries. The ever-present Western culture seems to be oppressive to her character, and she wants to escape from it. While being a migrant has its own advantage, but at the same time, it has got its advantages also, because of the prejudices that you face in different places. It deals with a dual perspective. Yeah, these are the broad areas that I have mentioned. Her last book, as I remember, Bye Bye Blackbird, is another powerful novel of exiled Indians who try to live in urban setting, you know. So this is another good novel that she has written about. Bharti Mukherjee. I don't think I have many slides left, so I will hurriedly go through it. It was Bharti Mukherjee who, along with Kamala Markande, laid the foundation of feminist diaspora writers. Now, this is a very important fact that you need to remember. Known for local and global perspective, Mukherjee's novel depicts the story of interracial love, immigration, assimilation. His work, The Tiger's Daughter, an Indian woman named Tara, marries an American man and attempts to work out the relationship. Similarly, in Jasmine, the female protagonist attempts to make herself at home in the United States. Mukherjee critically looks at the institution of marriage, along with womanhood, motherhood, and marital abuse. She attempts to look through her character in existential roles like gender, race, and sexuality. Some of her works include The Tiger's Daughter, Jasmine, Wife, The Terrible Daughter, and Miss New India. Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. Her novel The Mistress of Spices is very famous for. It got wide acclaim. The character's name called Tilu struggles with her different role and people's prejudices. In Arranged Marriage, another work of hers, she looks at the institution of marriage from traditional as well as in liberal perspective. So these are the writers who have written widely on gender issues, and some of the characters explains the social realities. Meena Alexander's Manhattan Music tells the story of Sandhya Rosenberg, which delves into fundamental question of what it means to be a woman. Her marriage to an American citizen and the subsequent turmoil in her relationship becomes the metaphor of outside and inside struggle that the character faces through. Suketu Mehta is another writer who migrated to US in 1977 along with his parent. He is known for his, this is a very famous book called Maximum City, Bombay, Lost and Found. Maximum City, Bombay, Lost and Found, which talks about the city and its various facets. The latest book, This Land is Our Land, an Immigrant Manifesto. Now, this is very interesting from a diasporic point of view. The Land is Our Land, an Immigrant's Manifesto, discusses the apology of the immigrants towards the adopted countries. You know, whenever these immigrants go, they are made to feel a second-class citizens, or they are made to feel as if they are unwanted. So, Suketu Mehta raised his voice against this misconception. He said, no, an immigrant is not a second-grade citizen. He has the same right which any other another citizen of that country has, because he has contributed richly for the economic development of that country. And US, when you talk about, or Canada, you talk about, it is basically a story of immigration. Immigrants making these countries an economic power. So this is what he is spoken about. Immigrants has the full right for respect and dignity in the host country, and he did not feel apologetic about his being in a country, because he has come to make his livelihood in a country which is rich, because it became rich on the virtue of these migrants only. And the other aspect that he talks about, that he feels that all immigrants coming from poorer countries should stake a claim to America as they have been victim of colonialism and capitalism. Mehta lays special emphasis on storytelling and the messages of success, achievement, and prosperity which immigrants send back to their homeland. It is these social injustice and the feeling of loneliness that Mehta portrays through his characters. So these are the broad outlines of writers who are called diasporic writers, and the work they have written, and the kind of a treatment they have given to their plot, their character, their settings, or to their narratives. So with this one, I would like to conclude this particular class on diaspora literature, and I would open it for discussion for the members to share their opinion, to share any questions they have. Please go ahead. Firoz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, anybody has got anything to ask? Vijay, Abhay, anybody, any member that you have any objection to any of these points, or maybe you have a question or you want to add on to something?
Yes. So they can directly ask Vijay if you have any question. Swades.
Yes, sir. I have posted the question. Can you
Okay,
please?
let me.
Swades, do you have any question? Shiv Shankar.
Is it visible?
Vijay, you're talking about GCC writers.
Yes, sir.
You mean to say Commonwealth to do with one? I'm not familiar with this term. Can you just explain it? GCC writers?
No, this about the Gulf countries, sir. Because all these writers whom you have mentioned so far,
Yeah.
they are not from Gulf. They are from different European countries. And one of this Mehta, he has written about Mumbai. It means Indian. So we just want to know about GCC as well. I mean Gulf countries. Gulf.
Okay, okay. Oh, okay. I got it. I thought it has got to do with something very literature. So that's what I was saying. So you're talking about writers who have written on Gulf issues, or
Yes,
maybe migrants of the. Honestly speaking, I don't remember many of those names, or maybe I will have to find it out, Vijay.
While writing assignment, I had gone through with a few of the writers
Yeah.
from Kerala, actually, Malayali writers. Some write-ups I got, but now currently I don't remember the names.
No, I remember
but
one name.
I found one or two books, two writers.
Now I remember the name. Now I can put things in context now.
Mm.
I'm just forgetting. I'm not able to recall the name. I'll tell you, and he wrote for my magazine also about his, and he is quite active in our group also, GRFDT group. If Firoz could remember, he's from Kerala again, Malayali, and then he went to Gulf.
Rajan sir.
Not Rajan sir.
Not Dr. Rajan. No. Dr. Rajan, he was a scientist here. And then he moved in late 2000 to back to Kerala, and now he is working for Kerala government.
No,
but I'm not talking about Rajan. There is another writer who has written about Gulf countries. He was famous. He has one book, but currently I'm not able to read.
No, he published probably last year only, and I can talk about the content of this thing. That
the book which was released last year, so that was some Arabic book translated into Urdu, but now I'm asking about the one which is written in Malayalam.
Okay, no, he's from Kerala. Let me tell you one thing. Let me tell you the broad outline that he wrote about, and that was very, very interesting. that how these people who go abroad to earn money for their families, once they come back, they are made to feel unwanted, you know. And this guy has to leave his family once he came after 20 or 25 years of working in the Gulf and sending money every year and then every month and then coming back to the horse of money. Once the family got the possession of the money, then he was, mistreated, and then he was thrown out not literally thrown out, but in a sense he was made to feel unwanted, and he has to sleep in his car, and then he went around the place. So I'm just forgetting his name. Probably in the next class I will be able to tell you.
I'll be waiting for it.
Yeah,
sir.
that's a very interesting book, and I still remember he wrote for my magazine also, and he wrote a couple of articles on wage theft as well. South Sir would be knowing. South Sir has met him also, so maybe I will discuss with him and then share the name with you. But as
Thank
such,
you,
if you see Vijay and other members also in the group, it is now it has become a purely a commercial this thing. A lot of people why is it's surprising and very true that we don't have many writers from the Gulf, Indian writers, whereas it has a huge population of Indians going over there. The reason being is a large number of them are unskilled, and they do not form the market for these editorial outputs, those who can buy books, and so this is one reason there has not been much of a publicity and much of writing on this thing. This is a commercial part, but I'm sure that there is a huge scope and there is a huge canvas of experience that people go through in Gulf countries. So maybe probably I'm not sure. Let me look into it, talk to people, search for this one, and we can discuss this thing in next class.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Sudesh? Jatin?
Yeah, sir. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Jitan.
I also read one book, The Forefathers of that writer.
Okay.
They migrated to African countries to work there earlier. It is in British colonial period. The writer written about his grandfather stories, how they migrated there, what is the wages and the work they did in that destination countries, how they build their career, and when very good story in Telugu. But he faced many struggles to collect this story of that grandfather.
Okay.
His name Veerayya.
Okay.
Yeah, the Telugu. He started journey by the ship to migrate South Africa to work in their agriculture fields.
Right.
Yeah, sir. Thank you. I remember that today.
You can share the name so that other people who wants to read this one can look for that.
I will do, sir. I will do for the book which I spoke about. I will share the link or a name in the group, so interested can read. And here we have library in Kuwait. We have a huge library, but we can get the books, but most of them are in Arabic, so it's very difficult for us to translate and read. And the rest, very few people have translated these books in English, but availability is less. So if we can find books in Jamia Millia, maybe we may find, because in Jamia Millia, the library is owned by Kuwait government.
Right.
They have set up a library over there. So we may get translated books over there. If you have any contact with someone who belongs to that library, then please let us know, sir. So we can get online or we can just buy the books.
Yeah, this is very true, and surprisingly, I haven't come across many books from Gulf countries, especially the fiction work that we talk about. And another book I read sometime back, probably last year, is Visa Vibes. You can search for that in the this one. And some of my teammates reviewed that book on GRFT website also. So it deals with, again, a diasporic experience of how a woman, when she goes abroad, the kind of a problem that she faces about language. If somebody is from the Telugu woman doesn't know English, and the kind of a problem she faces once she is in US. So that's a very interesting book that you can have a look on. That
Okay, sir.
deals with the gender issues also.
So just post the names in WhatsApp groups, sir. We will try to get the books.
Yeah, sure. I will share that book.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Any doubt that you have? Any question that you want to ask?
Nirmal, Jatin, Chitte.
Okay, sir. Good evening, sir. This is
Yeah,
Jitin. I belong from Manipur.
Hi,
Anyway,
Jitin.
when we talk of this diaspora literature, sir, to me, we are too much half of the diaspora literature at a micro level, sir. So when we, look into this diaspora literature at the macro level, at the micro level, it also means, diaspora also means the loss of belongingness, double colonization, the identity issues, and so on and so forth. So when we read the literature, whosoever written from the Northeastern Indian, those things could have been found in the literature of the Northeastern peoples written. So what do you say in this regard, apart from your macro level of diaspora literature's definition?
Yeah, if you see, if I try to correlate with, for example, Northeast, you talk about a lot of no, I think there's still a huge possibility, and there's a huge vacuum. Because there's a huge vacuum, there's a huge possibility of having both at the micro and macro level of regional writing, even people from, I know people from Assam or from Nagaland, or even from Manipur, who have gone overseas. I don't find many work which has come up, largely because the kind of attitude which they share. Some of them maybe they have gone there for business, or they have gone there for as an IT professional or as an artist. So how expressive they are about their experiences. So that's what I would say. There's a huge vacuum, both at the micro and macro level, and especially about the regional languages. I think you see, if somebody from Manipur goes to US and realizes the kind of a cultural experiences she or is having is very, very different. And what needs to be done, how they overcome those things. So that kind of lived-in experiences, which is useful for people, is not available.
Yeah, of course, sir. We have a lot of literatures which is written in the regional language. That might be there's a lack of translation. Maybe this is because of the things that people don't know, that there are things happening here. Maybe that might be one of the reasons.
It could be, yeah, absolutely. It could be. I have not been, for example, I have not been aware that you were saying that there is a lot of literature, Manipuri literature available, which deals with the diasporic experience of people. So and they could not find, say, they could not reach the limelight because people were not aware of that. So
yeah. So that means yeah, please carry on.
Yeah, please, you go ahead.
That means there is we need to create a space for them also when we talk of this diaspora literature.
things would make its own space. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it is people like you and other researchers who are working on diaspora and migration. Yeah? For example, through them, other people can know about it.
Mhm.
Otherwise, there are very less likelihood that people would be interested because they are not hot selling things in the market. So,
Mhm.
people go for which is glittery, which is more eye catching. So, and which relates to them directly. For a person who is going overseas, for him or her, that literature is going to be quite useful, whether that is a regional language or national other languages. So you'll always have appeal.
Yeah. Anyway, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you. It was a good question.
just put, sir.
Yeah. No, good. We need to interact. There are many things that for example, I didn't know that there's a lot of, I have friends from Manipur, but I didn't know that there's so much diasporic literature available. Maybe I will talk to them and get a peep into that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Sir, I have something to say.
Yeah,
This is
please.
general. Nowadays, since this internet and YouTube and other stuff, the reading habits have reduced. So everyone wish to either to go for short videos or some pictures. So the books which are not less than 100 or 200 pages. So most of the people, especially the younger generation, is not willing to read. And they are totally depending on Google or now so many other GPT stuff. So how to make them get back to the books world?
Yeah, Vijay, this is a very interesting question. But I think we should not try to make them read books if they do not want to. Because
Until and unless they don't read, how
no,
they know the chaska of
I tell you one thing.
the beauty of reading books.
I tell you one thing. Now you see, let me talk about. If you remember, earlier writers used to write books in 700, 600 pages. Yeah, 500 pages, voluminous book they used to write because people used to have that much time to read, and people were had plenty of time to read those things. Reading is very important. But I think what I realize now is because I cannot force my children to read books if they do not want to, because probably they are into a different time zone. You understand? Of course, that's a very good habit, and they should have it. I would love them to inculcate those things and to look into the richer world of books. But the other day, I was talking to my son who is studying, and then he says he got a book which I ordered online. That is a 600 pages book, and he says, "See, I have to understand. I have to spend a lot of time." The same thing, he goes to the video and looks into it. He says, "I can comprehend the whole thing in half an hour, which I will spend the whole day in understanding." So it depends on the kind of area they are into. If somebody is interested in literature, then we will not have to force them. They will eventually fall on track and they will read the books. Don't you agree on this one?
The similar thought I too have, but at the same time, so reading habits, the benefits and all, of course, we all know about it, but along with the changing time, the knowledge, they think, okay, I'll just read the gist of the book and enough, I know everything now. That attitude or perception is not right, I believe, because when we start reading the whole book, there is lot more hidden contents we are going to understand and perceive as well. So, but this is not happening in short summarized books. Even the notes, I can say, the study material which we provided for us to study. One time when I studied, okay, I got the gist. Second time when I read, I understood little more. And 3-4 times when I read, I realized that what I'm reading is just like a part, but there is a lot more to know about this course and materials. And when I surfed also, I found the same, because it's a huge. Children are relying totally on summarized notes. I think it's not
No, no,
right.
absolutely, absolutely. You see, I think everybody feels the same way. We as grown-ups, and we have read books and we have enjoyed it, and the kind of richness that helps you is not there in the YouTube videos, or maybe in the explanatory notes that we go through it. But I see that probably we cannot somehow I realize whether we can force them, and maybe we have to look into interesting ways to make them appealing, maybe a shorter books to begin with, say maybe about 60 pages books, then move on to the 100 pages books, and then to 150 books. So that's how we can help them graduate from one level to another, and then to get interested into reading books. There's no substitute. I absolutely agree. There is no substitute to good reading, good books. And so I would like other members of the group to say something about it, in case they have a way to explain this one and to improve on the reading habit of people.
I'll conclude now. Since you are a writer and you write journals or articles, so this point can be written very shortly, or you can post a video which can attract students or children or a younger generation to take them back to reading habits, if you can.
Yeah, it's a good point. Maybe I would like to speak to some of the psychologists that I am in touch with, children psychologists who looks into those areas. So they are very good. They have got very good tips and ideas. So maybe I'll try to incorporate and talk to some of them.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I will keep it as a future assignment for me.
Nirmal, do you have any question? No.
No, sir.
Nirmal, you need to say any curiosity that you have, in case you're going through this one. So how did you find? What was the thing that you give me your observation? Nirmal, I want to hear your voice.
Yes, sir, it was a good session. And about the Gulf migration that Madam told, there are quite some books from Kerala, such as the God Days, written by Benjamin, about the one of the Malayali guy who went to the Gulf region and he was deserted there for many years. And
Now
that
I
was
remember.
one book
Yeah,
which was
that's a
very
good book.
famous. And then there are others like Regimon Kuttappan. I didn't read the book, but I have saw that book. And these are the certain books that I remember about the Gulf migration from
No,
Kerala itself, as I am from Kerala.
yeah, Nirmal, that it's good that I made you speak. I was talking about Regiment book also. What is his full name and the name of the book?
Sir, Regimon Kuttappan.
And what is the name of the book that he has written?
Sir, that I don't remember, but I have seen through that book.
Yeah. Vijay, you remember I was talking about the person who came back from the Gulf, and then he was feeling unwanted. I was talking about the same book.
So he is the one, Regimon Kuttappan?
Yeah, I think so. See, what is the name of the book that you can Google it? What is the name of the book that he wrote recently? Probably that was in 2022 or 2021.
Okay, sir. Sure, I'll try.
Yeah, good that Nirmal spoke something about this one.
Yeah, they are just keeping all the knowledge hidden. They're not talking.
Yeah. I just
They
wanted to
should share.
we should share it. So that's what I wanted to hear his voice, and you never know, any one of you could write a
Sir,
good book.
sir, his book is Undocumented Stories of Indian Migrants in the Arab Gulf.
Right. See,
Can you please share in WhatsApp group the names? Let everybody
Okay,
get
ma'am.
to know, including.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Thank you.
thank you, Nirmal.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So anyone else? Yes, sir. I'm just waiting for others if they want to share anything more. Yes, sir. Now it has become more interactive session. Everyone is participating and giving their contribution.
Yeah, they have quite well-read people. I can now understand.
Regiman sir is also a reporter now.
Yeah.
It's nice to know everything, and it's really a great, interesting lecture that you have delivered, sir. Thank you for this enlightenment lecture, and thank you all the participants for your interactive session, for making this session as a more interactive one. Thank you, and we'll meet in the next class. Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Thank you,
all.
Dr. Firoz. Thanks a lot for coordinating so well, and even inspiring us also to speak. Getting the what mojo in the group. So thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, all the participants, and we'll catch up again.